Welcome back to the Satirical News Dolls. I'm Candace McKnight, and this is A Day Drinking with a Glue Gun, where we try to make sense of American politics using emotional support beverages. Although drinking glue only works if you're a doll, so don't try it at home. Today, we're looking at the latest reality-bending speech from President Trump about the economy. I'm going to need a lot of glue for this one.
President Trump plans to focus on the economy and affordability following Tuesday's elections. A top political advisor to the president told Politico yesterday, quote, "I think you'll see him be very, very focused on prices and cost of living." Those were the key messages for gubernatorial candidates Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, as well as Zohran Mamdani in the New York City mayoral race. All three, of course, easily won their elections on Tuesday. But in his speech to business leaders in Miami yesterday, President Trump bragged about the state of the economy.
We have the greatest economy right now. A lot of people don't see that. But if you look at what's happening with all the factories, AI, auto plants all over the country being built, that if you would have thought about that 2 or 3 years ago, you would have said it was the opposite. They were all leaving. Now they're all coming in. They're all coming back and then some. And I think that we can honestly say, and I think you're going to see it even more so over the next 12 months, that this is the golden age of America. This is the golden age. After last night's results, the decision facing all Americans could not be more clear. We have a choice between communism and common sense. Does that make sense to you? Common sense. It's common sense or communism. And you know, you take a look back 1,000 years, it hasn't worked. If it worked, we'd be using it, I guess, but it hasn't worked. Our opponents are offering an economic nightmare. We're delivering an economic miracle. We have delivered in 9 months. This is the biggest investment of funds in a country in history by many times. That's good. They want higher spending for government and illegal aliens. We want bigger paychecks for American workers and American families, and that's what we're delivering. You see that. They stand for crime and chaos and corruption. We stand for law and order and justice. Also, strong borders. Boy, do we have strong borders.
Feels like voters might have had a different take. Hours after that speech, the president posted on social media that affordability is a Republican stronghold, and it is what helped him get elected in 2024. But obviously, voters feel Republicans' focus has shifted. Still, House Speaker Mike Johnson appears to be brushing off Tuesday's election results. I want to play for you some of what he had to say yesterday.
There's no surprises. What happened last night was blue states and blue cities voted blue. We all saw that coming. And no one should read too much into last night's election results. Off-year elections are not indicative of what's to come. That's what history teaches us.
It's a convenient way to read the situation, despite the fact that Virginia elected a Republican governor quite popularly just 4 years ago in the last election. Still, those comments came shortly after President Trump acknowledged that the shutdown did play a role in the party's losses.
I thought we'd have a discussion after the press leaves about what last night represented and what we should do about it, and also about the shutdown and how that relates to last night. I think if you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans.
And I've got some reporting on what those private conversations were after the press did leave. But first, Congresswoman and House Republican Conference Chair Lisa McClain offered this explanation for GOP losses.
Voter turnout from Republicans was not high, not high at all. But I think part of that reason is because Republicans, for the most part, are happy with what's happening. The border's closed. Crime is down. Inflation under Biden used to be 9%. It's now down to 3%. Interest rates are down. Mortgages down. Let me just finish. Let me just give you the other side. I shop at the same grocery store as everybody else does.
So you see prices are up.
Is there more work that needs to be done? Absolutely there is.
All right, so affordability was one side of the coin in the elections, but the president just said the shutdown had an impact, and he's talking about it. Because as the shutdown drags on, Trump continues to push his desire to scrap the Senate filibuster rule, but doesn't appear to be swaying some key members of his own party. Trump privately aired these frustrations to Republican senators at a private breakfast yesterday, arguing Republicans would become, in his words, a dead party if they didn't act on ending this long-standing Senate rule that requires 60 votes to pass most legislation. He framed it as something Republicans have to do, specifically around the shutdown. But Republican lawmakers are largely rejecting that idea, with Senate Majority Leader John Thune telling reporters yesterday the votes aren't there to get rid of it, and that an end to the filibuster, in his words, is not happening. Trump's calls ramped up, though, after growing Republican anxiety over fallout from the shutdown and poor off-year election results on yesterday. He tied the two together directly. Still, as GOP senators dismiss the idea, they recognize the pressure of the shutdown is mounting. Republicans say they're close to finalizing a package of full-year funding measures for select federal agencies, and they met with Democratic negotiators on Tuesday. But obstacles still remain. Joining us in the land of obstacles, Capitol Hill reporter Julie Grace Brufke. You and I are on Capitol Hill every day, just sort of wondering, like, are we there yet? Which feels apt given the fact that they are now starting to cut the number of flights because the FAA pressure is getting so much that they're beginning to wonder about air safety amid the government shutdown. So I think the open question is, what impact did the elections have? And does it change anything in terms of getting us out of this shutdown posture?
Now, I feel like there's definitely no deal yet. Democrats are supposed to meet later today. I feel like all the Democrats I've talked to feel like this was a referendum on Trump and they should lean in on getting this vote on healthcare subsidies, which they'll likely get a standalone vote there. But they feel like that's really a referendum and the voters are kind of pushing them to kind of continue to dig in there. Now, Republicans I've talked to have said they feel like things are thawing a little bit and they think they could get there, especially before Thanksgiving travel.
Yeah, that is, I think, the hope. I think for Democrats, they're looking at it and saying, see, there's upside to what we're doing. Voters like that we're standing up for health care, which is one of the key pieces of cost of living. I think Republicans are feeling pressure on this, but it's stunning to me how many of them are not feeling that pressure manifest as pressure to get to the negotiating table. They're feeling it as pressure to maybe heed the calls of the president. I had Josh Hawley say to me yesterday, if you have me choosing between helping my constituents and defending an arcane piece of Senate procedure, I'm going to pick helping my constituents. That's how he's boiling it down. But as long as Thune is saying they're not getting rid of the filibuster, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked to Republicans that are pro getting rid of the filibuster that are still like the votes aren't there. But I mean, it's been interesting, especially on the healthcare subsidies, to kind of see who the Republicans that are pushing for this. You've got kind of Marjorie Taylor Greene out on the forefront of this. But I mean, leadership, they feel like healthcare needs a full overhaul and those talks need to be happening. And I mean, I think Democrats very well could manage to rally enough Republicans to get behind passing those subsidies, but I guess we'll have to see how much pressure kind of continues to mount on Republicans there.
The thing that's interesting to me is the way that this bipartisan group is starting to coalesce around some key ideas. But when it comes to the Affordable Care Act subsidies, and again, the group hasn't presented what their negotiated positions are. But what I keep hearing is that on the ACA subsidies, it might just be a simple one-year extension. Why wouldn't Republicans notch a win in the same way that Democrats are going to call it a win on something that would be politically problematic for them?
I mean, I think at this point, both sides have been so dug in on the issue. But when it comes down to it, if I'm a betting girl, I feel like it probably ends up being a one-year extension on that, because I think voters really are kind of, I've talked to a lot of lawmakers that are hearing about this back home, which I think it is a big issue where even on the right, there is kind of a push for that.
Ultimately, what is your best estimate of when this ends, how this ends? I mean, it's such a big question, but I think that some people came into this week hearing Ted Cruz say, oh, we'll vote to get out of it on Wednesday. And even I was like, would that it were true, but no.
I mean, there's definitely been a lot of predictions out there. And I mean, I think probably before Thanksgiving, but I mean, who knows, would fights kind of pop up in the next few days and what other issues start to emerge. But I mean, I've talked to members on both sides that feel like things are starting to, those bipartisan talks are kind of starting to come together. But, you know, Capitol Hill is a wild place. So it's, you never know what's coming at you.
It's why we love it. And also, this is a clear instance of it just not working the way that it's supposed to. Do you think that breakfast with Trump yesterday made a tough situation tougher? Because he's clearly not telling his members, please negotiate this. He's saying just bulldoze Democrats.
Yeah, I mean, I think the push to get rid of the filibuster versus push to, I think definitely with moderate senators that would like to really see a bipartisan, it doesn't make things easier, make those talks easier. And I think it definitely motivates progressives to kind of push forward on we should be moving forward with our agenda because we're going to get steamrolled on these things if this moves forward.
Yeah, I think that's always been the story. And these shutdowns, I think, are hard to cover, too, because you just end up covering the same stop-start negotiations until something doesn't stop after it's started. And we're maybe at the point where that's about to be true. But right now, it just feels like a lot of momentum, and then all of a sudden that just falls back. But that is Capitol Hill negotiating around a shutdown. We've been here many a time before.
This is true. Starting to feel like Groundhog Day, but eventually we'll get there.
Yeah, no, it always does. Until it's over, it will feel that way. Capitol Hill reporter Julie Grace Brufke, it was excellent to see you. Thanks for starting.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, so now this is the golden age of America. If this is the golden age, then somebody swapped the gold for spray-painted aluminum from Party City. Trump is out here saying we have the greatest economy. Sir, the only economy you have ever boosted is the one selling your merch and grievance vitamins. Factories are coming back? Where? Show me. Google Maps hasn't found a functioning American factory since Blockbuster was open. And then we got the slogan of the century, common sense or communism. That's not a political argument. That's a Facebook boomer meme that got up and learned to speak. He's replaying Cold War reruns like it's Nick at Night for people who still think Reagan is coming back. He says Thanksgiving dinner is cheaper. For who? Because I'm seeing prices so high, I'm considering roasting the store manager. Meanwhile, Republicans are on TV saying their voters didn't show up because they're satisfied. Satisfied with what? Rent? Groceries? A $12 carton of eggs? The only people satisfied are the billionaires who got tax cuts and beachfront bunkers. And can we talk about the shutdown? Trump is at breakfast threatening senators like a rotisserie chicken with Wi-Fi. He wants to get rid of the filibuster or the party is dead. Meanwhile, the senators are like, we hear you, we understand you, but absolutely not. Everyone in that room looked like they were negotiating with a very emotional Thanksgiving turkey. Democrats are trying to extend health care subsidies so your Aunt Linda doesn't have to put her insulin on Afterpay. Republicans are arguing about whether hunger builds character. This isn't policy. This is a group project where one guy refuses to do the work but still demands an A. So yes, the election was a referendum on groceries, on rent, on basic reality. And America said very clearly, we would like to not live inside a cartoon anymore. Thank you.